My wife cleaned out my bank account while I was unconscious in the hospital. I deserve this after everything I've done for you, her message read. I answered with a single thumbs up. When they discharged me the next day, I didn't go back to the house. My name's Cameron Doyle. I'm 45 and I spent the last 22 years driving a semi. Not glamorous, but it paid the bills and kept Dana in a life she rarely acknowledged. I'd felt that tight band across my chest for weeks. I told myself it was stress, the long hours, bad coffee on the road, until one afternoon somewhere outside Omaha, the pain became impossible to ignore. I pulled over, called 911, and 3 hours later they'd medevaced me to Sioux Falls, South Dakota. It wasn't panic. My heart was failing. I remember the doctor's face before everything faded. "We're losing him," she said. Not exactly the thing you want to hear before blacking out. 2 days later, I woke up tethered to IVs and with a stent in my artery. The nurse told me I'd flatlined twice and that I was lucky to be alive. Luck didn't feel like the right word when I scrolled my messages. There was a single text from Dana attached, a screenshot of our joint account. Balance, $0. Under it, she typed, "I deserve this after everything I've done for you. $61,438.72. My emergency cushion, the truck maintenance fund, some retirement padding. All gone." I should have felt hot, explosive anger. Instead, I felt bone-deep exhaustion, the kind no sleep fixes. I tapped the thumbs up emoji and left it at that. When the cardiologist came in, he told me the usual: rest, avoid stress, no driving for at least 6 weeks. He asked if someone could pick me up the next day. I lied. That night I called my brother Jeff. We hadn't spoken much the past months. Life makes distance even inside the same town. "Need a favor?" I said when he picked up. "Name it," he replied without pause. "I need a couch for a few nights. And don't tell Dana, a beat. She doesn't know you're alive." He asked. "Oh, she knows," I said. "She just doesn't know I'm not coming home." Dana and I met at a gas station outside Cheyenne years ago. Her tire was flat. I was the guy who stopped and knew how to use a jack. Romance looks like heroism in the beginning. Later it simply becomes expectation. We married 6 months later. I was 30. She was 27. Young enough to believe in forever, old enough to suspect it might not last. I was on the road 3 weeks out of 4. The money was there, and she liked what it paid for. At first, our calls were an hour long. Over the years, they shrank to updates, then to brief check-ins, then mostly to texts. She stopped asking when I'd be home and began taking weekends away with friends I didn't know. I told myself trust was the basis of marriage. Turns out trust is a dangerous thing when the other person stops being trustworthy. Jeff let me crash in his spare room. He'd been through messy divorces. He knew how people fold when pressure mounts. "You should eat," he said, handing me a sandwich. I wasn't hungry. My mind replayed the refinance I'd completed 3 months earlier when rates dipped. I signed the paperwork in person and put the mortgage in my name alone. Dana hadn't come to the closing and hadn't asked for copies. I also thought about the medical power of attorney I'd executed last year after a friend suffered a stroke. My niece Megan, studying law, had helped me get the documents right. I felt foolishly secure that I'd planned for the worst. On day 3 at Jeff's, I got a text from our neighbor, Harold. "Haven't seen you around. Everything okay? Dana's got some guy over. Thought you should know." I let the message sit. Later, Jeff and I drove to downtown Bank to talk to a fraud specialist. Not our small branch where everybody knew us, but the main office. More anonymity, more formality. I handed them the screenshot of the drained account and explained my hospitalization, unconscious, incapacitated, withdrawals without consent. The woman behind the counter listened with the professional neutral face. Pity creased the corners of her eyes. "We can open a fraud investigation," she said, "but since it's a joint account and your wife has equal access, proving unauthorized withdrawals can be complicated." I cut in quick. "Started anyway," she typed. "Told me they would need hospital records showing the dates and times of incapacitation." "Not a problem," I said. "If it becomes criminal, the police will be involved." She nodded. I knew the drill. On the drive back, I watched a father and his 2 kids buy ice cream from a corner store and felt like an intruder in ordinary life. Back at Jeff's, I made 3 pragmatic calls. First, to my dispatcher, extended medical leave. Second, to the credit union where I kept a small business account for side contracts. Third, to Blake, a lawyer friend of Jeff's, asking bluntly, "What are my rights with the house and the accounts?" Blake agreed to meet the next morning. As I logged into online accounts Dana had never bothered to inspect. It became clear she had assumed I didn't keep secrets, but I had. There were investments she'd never asked about and corporate-type accounts I'd set aside for rainy days. Not hidden for deceit, but because she never wanted the boring details. While I was doing that, another text from Dana arrived. "Where are you? Your truck isn't at the depot. Did they tell you I came by?" She followed up, "This is ridiculous. You can't just disappear. We need to talk." I didn't answer. Jeff looked up from the sink and asked if I was going to respond. I closed the laptop. Not yet. That night I walked Jeff's neighborhood. The sky was clear and the stars were visible, even with the For the first time since the hospital, my chest didn't ache. The ache inside, the one made of betrayal and disappointment, began to dull into something else. Relief. Dana hadn't only taken my money. In her way, she had given me a way out. The house smelled different when I finally went back a week after discharge in the middle of the day, when I knew she would be at work. Cologne that wasn't mine. Empty wine bottles in the recycling. 2 wine glasses in the dishwasher. I packed a few clothes, my important papers, and a small lockbox from the closet where I kept my birth certificate and passport. As I was walking out, I noticed the framed photo from our wedding day was missing from the whole Back at Jeff's, I met with Blake, the lawyer. We sat at the kitchen table with papers spread out between us. "The house situation is interesting," he said, reviewing the refinancing documents. "Since you refinanced solely in your name with that medical clause, and given your recent cardiac event, you have a strong case for sole possession. What about the money?" Blake frowned. "That's trickier. Joint accounts typically mean joint ownership," but he tapped a finger on the bank statements. "The fact that Sheck cleared it out while you were medical incapacitated could constitute financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult, especially since you have documentation. These were primarily your earnings." I nodded. "And if I want a divorce, South Dakota is an equito-bledistrintian state. Given the circumstances, I think we can make a compelling case for an arrangement in your favor." He gathered the papers. "I'll draft some initial documents. In the meantime, don't contact her. Don't respond if she reaches out." Everything threw me now. The next day, Dano showed up at Jeff's house. I was alone. Jeff at work. I heard her car pull up, but didn't look out the window. The doorbell rang 3 times before "I know you're in there, Cameron. Your truck is parked down there." Her voice was muffled through the door. "You can't just hide. We need to talk a booth." I sat perfectly still in the living room like a kid playing hide-and-seek. Eventually, the knocking stopped. I thought she'd left until my "I'm sorry about the money. I was saying, you've been distant for months. You thought you were cheating. I found out about the house refinancing and we can work this out. Please talk to me." It was the first time she'd ever accused me of cheating, projection probably. I turned the phone face down without replying. The next day Blake called with news. "Dana contacted me. Hesad, she's hired Patricia Wells as her attorney." Patricia Wells, one of the most aggressive divorce attorneys in this today, known for going after everything houses, retirement accounts, "What does that mean for us?" I asked. "It means she's not playing." Wells is already claiming theatre abandonment after the hospitalization constitutes as desertion. She's painting you as unstable. Cyan, you disappeared without explanation and a refusing communication. I let out a long breath. "So what now?" "Now we get ahead of this. I filed for an emergency hearing regarding the fund she withdrew. Judge Harmon is presiding, that he takes a very dim view of taking advantage of medical." After hanging up I stared at the wall for a long time. Then I made the call to my niece Megan. I needed her help with some. That evening I drove past our house. Janar's car was in the driveway. Alling's the black Audi. I circled the block once, then headed back to Jeff's in the driveway. I got a text from a number I didn't. "This is Patricia Wells. I represent Dana Doyle. Any further surveillance of my client will be documented as harassment. Our communication must go through proper legal channels." They were watching me. I was watching them. And now the gloves were off. 2 weeks after that first meeting with Blade, we had our day in court. Emergency hearing regarding the withdrawn funds. Dana was there with Patricia Wells, both in sharp suits. I wore the only tie I owned, the one I kept in my truck for unexpected funerals on the road. Judge Harmon was an older man with white hair and reading glasses perched on the end of his nose. He reviewed the filings without expression, occasionally looking up at Dana, then at Ms. Wells. He finally said, "Your client withdrew the entirety of their joint accounts while Mr. Doyle was hospitalized for a life-threatening cardiac event. Is that well stood, Your Honor? McLean had every right to access those joint funds. Furthermore, Mr. Doyle had recently refinanced their marital home solely in his name without Mrs. Doyle's knowledge, which we contend was the first act of financial." The judge removed his I'm not asking about the house right now, counselor. I'm asking about the timing of the withdrawal. Was your client aware that Mr. Doyle was in the hospital when she took the... Dana leaned over and whispered something to Wells. Wells cleared her. Yes, Your Honor, but my client was under extreme emotional distress, believing her marriage was ending. She acted to protect herself. The judge put his glasses back on. While unconscious from a heart attack seems an unlikely time for Mr. Doyle to end his marriage, he shuffled some papers. I'm ordering the funds frozen pending further proceedings. Neither party may access this money until ownership is determined in Theodore. It wasn't a complete win, but it stopped Dana from As we left the courtroom, Dana tried to approach me. Wells held her back with a hand on her arm, but not before Dana said, Cameron, please, there's so much you don't. I walked past without looking at her. Outside, Blake was... This is just the beginning now. We start Discovery. Discovery, Thepert, where all the cards get laid on Thepert. A week later, Blake called me to his office. When I arrived, he had a folder waiting. We've got something, he said, sliding it across the desk. Inside was a bank statement from an account I didn't recognize. Dana's name was on it. The balance $12,734,056. Where did this come from? I asked. Your niece found it. Megan's internship at the credit union downtown gave her some insights. This account was opened 18 months ago. Regular deposits always just under $10,000. Just under the reporting. Classic sign of hiding money. There's more. Blake said the deposits align with your long-haul schedule. When you're gone, money goes in. I sat back. She's been planning this for a year and a half. Blake shook his head. I don't think she was planning to leave Cameron. I think she was preparing in case you left. Why would I leave her? I was working myself to death to provide for us. That's when Blake slid over an third piece of paper, a credit card statement with a hotel charge from a place in Minneapolis. Date, 3 months ago. I'd been in Seattle that week. The name on the reservation was Harold Jensen. Harold, our neighbor, the one who texted me about the guy at our house. Blake's face was grim. We think Harold has been involved with Dana for some time. He was creating a false trail to make you suspicious while they were... The betrayal wasn't just Dana. It was coordinated, planned. Harold playing concerned neighbor while sleeping with my wife. Dana draining our accounts while I was fighting for my... I stood up. What's our next move? Blake smiled for the first time that day. That's up to you. But if I were in your shoes, I'd make sure they both regret ever thinking they could get away with. I spent the next month living at Jeff's, recovering physically while Blake built our case. We had to document everything, gather evidence of Dana and Harrow's, prove the my niece Megan weighs. Her position at the credit union gave us insight into financing Alpatones. We wouldn't have seen nothing illegal, just connecting dots that were already in plain sight. The account has another person with access. She told me not a joint owner but unauthorized. Harold, I guessed. She nodded. Anther is something else. They've started moving money, smaller amounts to different accounts. They know we're onto them. I stared out the window. They're liquidating, getting ready to run. That night, I called Blake. We need to move. I agree, but we need to be... If we tip our hand too soon, they'll disappear with everything I vanished. So, what do we... Blake was quiet for a moment. We need leverage, something that makes them think twice about... The next day I drove to our house when I knew Dana would be at work. I didn't go inside. Instead, I walked its property line, taking photos with my phone. The new shed Harold had helped build last summer. The fancy landscaping that had mysteriously appeared while I was on a 3-week haul to California. Improvements paid for with my money, likely installed by Harold, increasing property value of the home that was no solely in my name. I sent the photos to Blake with a simple message, documented. 2 days later, Dana's lawyer called Blake with an unexpected offer. Dana would return 50% of the withdrawn funds in exchange for 50% equity in the house. They're testing us, Blake said when heckled to tell me, seeing if we'll settle cheap. What do we tell them? Nothing yet. Let them sweet. Meanwhile, I made another move. I contacted my trucking company's head department, explained my situation, asked about the disability insurance I'd been paying into for 20 years. You're entitled to 60% of your salary for up to 12 months, the representative explained. Given your cardiac event and the doctor's restrictions, you easily... I filed the paperwork that day. Another source of income that Dana didn't know about wouldn't be included in any settlement discussions yet. Then next week, I had Jeff drive me past our house again. This time, I noticed it's something new. A for sale sign on Harold's lawn. He's cutting and running, Jeff said. I nodded. Call Megan an hour later. Megan confirmed our suspicion. Harold had cleared out his accounts 2 days earlier, nearly $90,000 withdrawn in cashier's checks. I called Blake immediately. We need to act now. Harold's selling his house. Dana might be planning to go with him. Blake didn't. I'll file for an emergency injunction first thing tomorrow, freezing all assets, preventing propertizals without court approval. The next morning, I woke to a text from Dana. We need to talk. Just you and me. No lawyers. I showed it to Jeff. They're desperate, he said. I nodded good. I forwarded the text to Blake, who replied, don't respond. Injunction hearing is at 2 p.m. at 1:30. I was walking into the courthouse when I spotted Dana and Harold together in their parking lot arguing. They didn't see me. I took out my phone and recorded them from a distance. 30 seconds of evidence showing their relationship, something they'd been careful to hide from legal proceedings. Inside, Blake was waiting. I showed him the video. Perfect timing, he said. Judge Harmon is already in a mood today. I straightened my tie. Then, let's not keep him waiting. Judge Harmon's chambers were smaller than the courtroom. Just the judge, the 2 lawyers, Dana and me. Harold wasn't allowed in. He wasn't party to the divorce. The video of them together played on the judge's computer. No sound, but their body language said everything. Ms. Wells, Judge Harmon said when it finished, would you care to explain why your client has been declaring under oath that she has no relationship with this neighbor when video evidence clearly shows otherwise? Wells looked shaken. Your Honor, the nature of their relationship isn't relevant to the financial matters at hand. It is when financial fraud is being alleged. The judge turned to Mrs. Doyle. Are you planning to live the state with Mr. Jensen? Dane's face. I hadn't. Let me rephrase. The judge. The court has evidence that you and Mr. Jensen have been moving substantial sums of money, that Mr. Jensen is selling his property, and that you withdrew funds from joint accounts while your husband was in. This suggests a pattern of deception and intent to flee. I looked at both lawyers. I'm issuing an immediate freeze on all assets belonging to both Dana Doyle and Harold Jensen. Neither may leave the county without court permission. Additionally, heartened to me, given Mr. Doyle's medical condition and the evidence of financial exploitation during his incapacity, I'm granting temporary exclusive use of the marital home to Mr. Doyle. Dana made a small choked sound. Your Honor, Wells began, but the judge held up a hand. The exploitation of a medically vulnerable spouse is something this court takes very seriously. Counselor, you're lucky I'm not recommending criminal charges at this time. Blake gathered his papers, trying not to look too satisfied. As well if Dana caught my eye. For the first time, I saw fear there. Not of me, of consequence. 3 months after Theo Hospital, I moved back into our house. My house now. The divorce was finalized faster than anyone expected. Dana didn't fight after the injunction hearing. Harold had disappeared, leaving her to face everything alone. In the end, the judge awarded me the house, my truck, and 80% of our savings. Dana got her car and the remaining 20%. The secret account was split 50-50. Butanly after she paid my legal fees from her share. I never spoke to her. Everything through lawyers. The last I heard, she'd moved to Minneapolis. Starting over, I guess. I sold the house 6 months later. Bought a smaller place closer to Jeff and Megan. Used some of the money to help Megan with law school. She's going to make a hell of an I don't drive long haul. My heart can't take the stress. Doctor says, found work home every night. It's quieter than the open road, but there's something to be said for stability. Sometimes people ask if I'm angry about what happened. I'm not no animal. You can't control what others, only how you respond. Dana thought she was taking everything from me that day in the hospital. Instead, she forced me to fight for myself in a way I never had before. Last week I was cleaning out some old boxes and found our wedding album. Thought about throwing it away, but didn't just put it back in the box. It's part of mystery now. Not the end, just a chapter. The heart attack nearly killed me. The betrayal nearly broke me. But I'm still here. Changed, maybe stronger. Definitely some lessons you learn the hard way. Some people you lose for good, and sometimes the life you build is better than the one you lost.